You know those movies that are so good you just pray that there's going to be a sequel? Well, USA-Canada gets a sequel. Thursday night, the championship of the Four Nations Face-Off. Erik Karlsson, his team has struggled at the Four Nations Face-Off, but he definitely hasn't. And we're going to talk about his trade value, as well as Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon getting the job done yet again to set up this rematch with the United States on Thursday. I'm not going to bore you guys with a ton of Four Nations face-off coverage because reality is that's all I've been talking about for the last few videos. Right now, we have to talk about Erik Karlsson because after this whole thing is over on Thursday, we're right back to reality and back to the NHL season. And Erik Karlsson is still a Pittsburgh Penguin. So that is something that needs to be addressed. I just like to talk about the Four Nations face-off, so of course I'm going to mix a little bit of that in there. But first, we're going to talk about Erik Karlsson. And before we get into Erik Karlsson, I want you guys to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Penguins Digest coming at you with the latest Pittsburgh Penguins news, rumors, analysis, and all other types of content regarding your Pittsburgh Penguins. So if you're a Penguins fan, this is the channel for you. Let's talk about EK65 because Erik Karlsson's post-tournament trade value might be a little bit higher than it was before the Four Nations face-off. Karlsson has played tremendous for Team Sweden, and Team Sweden has not had a whole lot to show for it, but he has been one of the best players on the ice, and he has been noticeable, which is not something you could say about him most days that he puts on a Penguins uniform. So this is important for Kyle Dubas to take notes that these teams are probably interested in Erik Karlsson more than ever before. And it's perfect timing with the salary cap being raised. Trade deadline's right around the corner, and the salary cap is going to go up by year. So Karlsson's contract is less and less of a deal breaker the better that he plays. And his performance on the ice in the Four Nations faceoff tells me a lot about where he's headed. And the Penguins just need to find a way to utilize this guy because he is such a good player. And we just haven't found the ability to unleash Erik Karlsson. And Erik Karlsson is a guy that can really impact a hockey game. He's an extremely talented player even at his age. As much as people don't want to admit that, he can be a very valuable asset for the Penguins down the stretch. He would have never been traded for in the first place if he didn't bring something to the table of value. And he has a lot of value. I think there are plenty of teams that are watching this Four Nations faceoff, watching him play with other world-class players and saying, hey, he might actually be a really good fit for our team. Well, by all means, take him off our hands. But my opinion of this whole thing is that he should stay in Pittsburgh and that Pittsburgh should just use him. Open him up. Let him have the freedom to play his brand of hockey. Don't put him in a box and force him to play a game that he's not comfortable playing. This is a different breed of player, Erik Karlsson. This is a dude that wants to be an offensive-minded defenseman and change the pace of the game. And talk about pace of the game. This guy is very fast. And let me change the graphics so you can read it a little bit better. He is very fast. He actually clocked in at one of the fastest max speeds in the entire Four Nations faceoff, and he's one of the oldest players in the tournament. He's the 6th oldest player in the tournament, but he still has wheels. That's something that people don't understand about Karlsson. You watch him out there, he's such a smooth skater, but he's also very fast, and that's how he's able to keep up with the pace of play in today's NHL and all of these younger players, because it is a young man's game. But Erik Karlsson, despite his age, is able to keep up with that young man's game and play a pretty good brand of hockey himself. He's just not comfortable playing with Mike Sullivan's style. Mike Sullivan's style is a little bit different with these rugged defensemen like Charlie McAvoy has been very good for Team USA and in more of a Mike Sullivan-like system. The type of defensemen that they filled out Team USA with are more Mike Sullivan's style. But Erik Karlsson, man, he's the unicorn. He's the wild card. You got to let him do his thing. It's not all about this structure. Let Erik Karlsson have the freedom to do what he wants to do so that he's comfortable and he's productive. Because at the end of the day, we're just trying to win hockey games. It doesn't matter what that looks like. It's time to take some risks. And look at what Karlsson did against Canada. 6 shot attempts, plus 13 shot attempts differential in 5-on-5 against Canada. And that is a very loaded roster that Canada has. He was playing third pair minutes for Sweden because everybody on Sweden doesn't like him. He's having problems with the coach. We've heard about that the last few days. But Erik Karlsson is not bad. And you see the last line there is the only part I don't agree with. He's so good when he doesn't have to carry a team. When has anyone said he had to carry the Penguins? He decides to carry the puck a lot, but he just doesn't get the freedom to just go coast to coast, go end to end, and actually create. Because every time that he does, no one's willing to back up and play some defense and actually have your teammates back. If you have an aggressive offensive defenseman like Erik Karlsson, we should be treating him like Cale Makar. We should be unleashing him as a weapon, because that's what he is. And he is used properly. He's one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. We saw that when he wins his Norris trophies, especially when Brent Burns left the San Jose Sharks and he was all alone. I'm not saying trading maybe Kris Letang is the best idea there, because that would be the equivalent of the Sharks trading Brent Burns. I don't know. I mean, if a team's really going to give us something nice for Erik Karlsson, I'm not going to turn it down. But at the same time, I feel like he hasn't been here. He's been here a while, but not long enough to say that it was a bad move. A lot of people want to say it's a bad move, mostly because of the contract. But if you look back at what the Penguins gave up to get Erik Karlsson, it wasn't a whole lot. It really wasn't anything, if you think back to it. There were some interesting players involved in that trade, but nobody that was irreplaceable. Erik Karlsson, if he's at his best, there's not much like him. There's just not much like him. So I'm here to say his trade value is going up because of this tournament, and all the tweets have been rolling in. They've been rolling in about Erik Karlsson. They've been talking about him the entire tournament since the first game. And look at some of these fan tweets. Would love to see Erik Karlsson play this type of game down the stretch for the Penguins. I agree. Erik Karlsson isn't bad. Looks real good in this tournament. It's ironic that the two people whose reputations have gotten the biggest reprieve in this tournament are Mike Sullivan and Erik Karlsson. That is a really interesting point. Those are the two most underrated, slept on, and criticized people in this entire Four Nations face-off, and they just both happen to be Penguins. Mike Sullivan is coaching Team USA, and he's doing a darn good job of it. The moves that he's made, adjusting on the fly in just a short period of time of seeing this team, and the way that he's been able to make this team work. Now, obviously, he has a great coaching staff around him as well, but Mike Sullivan has made this Team USA team very hard to stop. And we're going to see how they do tonight against Sweden and Erik Karlsson, which is pretty much why I'm making this video right now as well. Erik Karlsson isn't what he once was, but he's proving he can still be a no-brain selection for Sweden. Why he was a no-brain selection for Sweden. He'd still create magic in big moments, and that is 100% the case for Erik Karlsson. It's just crazy to see all of this talk about him all of a sudden, because he goes so unnoticed with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now he's playing on a national level, playing for this Four Nations face-off, and he's getting all of this love. It feels like we're getting old school elite Erik Karlsson at this tournament. We are. He's ripping shots on goal. He's creating. He's skating up the ice. He's running. He's one of the fastest guys out there. He's just noticeable. And that, if he was like that for the Penguins, would be a different hockey club. It's crazy to think that way. But the Penguins' incompetence has fooled people into thinking Erik Karlsson isn't still very good. But he is. And that's 100% it. I mean, the Penguins, it's not incompetence. I hate using that word, incompetence. But it's failure to implement him in a proper situation that best fits him. It's like changing schemes in the NFL. You might have a quarterback that's really successful. Well, then he goes to a completely different team, and he can't adjust to the system. It's like learning a whole new playbook. The same thing happens in hockey, even though we don't necessarily have a full playbook, but we still draw up plays. We still have strategy. And Sidney Crosby and Evgeni Malkin and Kris Letang have never had any issues with the Penguins' fundamentals and with the way that they work things. But Erik Karlsson, he didn't fit like a glove. So unfortunately, we're in the situation now where we either have to trade him or we have to change up the way he's used. Because when he's used properly, you could see from this Four Nations faceoff, he could still be a huge weapon on the offensive end of the ice. And then we talk about the overall takeaways from this Four Nations face-off, and I'll keep it brief because I don't want this to be a very long video, but the Four Nations face-off has garnered a ton of attention from hockey fans and sports fans alike. It has been one of the greatest things for the NHL in a time where all-star games and mid-season things for all professional sports are at an all-time low. The NBA All-Star Game was a joke. I was more interested in the Daytona 500 yesterday. I will absolutely admit that, but they still were talking bad about it the next day. I'm hearing all about the All-Star Game for the NBA and how terrible it was and how embarrassing it is that this is the type of content people have to watch. This is what they get, the product on the court. They're seeing celebrities out there more often than they're seeing actual basketball be played. Well, this is the opposite for the NHL because we are bringing in record viewership for this type of event. And USA Canada drew a whopping 4.4 million viewers. Tell me that's not good for the game of hockey. Tell me that's not helping grow our great game of hockey that has gone much underappreciated for my entire lifetime. It is the greatest sport on planet Earth, and everybody wants to bash it. But when the Bash Bros come out, Kachuk, then everybody's talking about it. So if that's what it takes to get hockey back on the map, count me in. JJ Watt spoke about it. Four Nations is the best idea hockey has had in a long time. Only thing missing, Doc Emmerich on the call. You're dang right, JJ Watt, and of course he knows. Everything JJ Watt says is factual. I mean, this guy's unbelievable. TJ Watt, thank you so much as well. Stay in Pittsburgh, okay? But JJ Watt, he said it, man. Keep it short, keep it simple, keep it concise. This is literally all you got to say. It's the best idea the NHL has had in a long time, and if Doc Emmerich was calling this tournament, I'd have goosebumps. I would have goosebumps. The greatest play-by-play guy of all time, Doc Emmerich, calling this tournament, even if he just came out of retirement for a week just to call these games every year, I would be all in for that, okay? And this is from Field Yates. Field Yates put out a tweet. The NFL has turned the Pro Bowl into a flag football game. Yeah, that happened. NBA All-Stars don't even break a sweat or play defense in their game. And I think it was even worse this year, based on what I've heard. NHL players are throwing haymakers 3 seconds in to the Four Nations face-off game, and it looks like the Royal Rumble. This game rules. That's all you got to say, Field. That's all you got to say. That's a football guy right there. That's football guys saying that. J.J. Watt and Field Yates. They understand the NFL has gone soft in the midseason tournament, in this All-Star, Pro Bowl, whatever you want to call it, NBA, NFL. It's terrible. It's horrible. I like the MLB All-Star game. I've never necessarily had a problem with it. I like the idea of seeing all these different players play, and the Home Run Derby is obviously amazing, but the NHL has figured it out. This is what you got to do. The rumors that are coming out about the NBA doing a USA versus the world, that's what they should do, because this works. The proof is in the pudding, ladies and gentlemen. This was one of the best ideas the NHL ever had, and this is the best, most fun, competitive hockey tournament for a mid-season tournament where there's usually meaningless games, making those games meaningful, putting the best on best out there playing for their country. You literally cannot make it better than that. This script is perfect. Let's see the movie. And the movie's not over yet. And if it was over, we get a sequel, because Thursday is the championship. USA versus Canada for the first ever Four Nations Face-Off championship. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Guys, this has been fun to talk about this here on the show for you guys. And if you made it to this point in the video, I do want to thank you, because there's nothing Penguins to talk about right now. The Penguins players that are in this tournament is all I can really comment on. I don't want to go, off the walls and just talk about in general, but I don't know what else to do here. When hockey resumes, we're going to have plenty of, trade rumor videos and update videos and game recaps. Right now, we are just soaking this up, because this has been so much fun, and I'm enjoying it. And I hope you're enjoying it as well. We have one more game. Tonight's game, yes, it's still a game, but I'm worried about Thursday, because USA already clinched their spot. Yes, I want Mike Sullivan to stay on the boys. I don't want them to lay off the gas and just give Sweden a freebie and then have no momentum going into the last game, because Canada, they took their foot off the gas against Finland and almost lost that game. So I think it's important to play your game, not establish bad habits this late in the tournament. I'm saying that like it's late in the tournament. It's the third game out of 4, so it is. But just play your game. You're resting Hellebuck. You're resting Charlie McAvoy. You're resting Kachuk, who's banged up. Important players. Probably 3 of the most important players on our roster. And then you go in and play Canada on Thursday. And this is bragging rights here. This is who is hockey's #1 nation? Who is the #1 nation for hockey right now? Is it the U.S.? Are they taking the crown? Or is Canada still the alpha? And I love it. I love it so much. So thank you guys for watching this episode of Penguins Digest. We talked about Erik Karlsson, talked about how he's been underutilized by the Penguins, how good he's been in this tournament. We get to watch him tonight against Mike Sullivan's Team USA, and then Thursday, Canada, USA for the championship, and then back to Penguins hockey on Saturday. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Penguins Capitals on Saturday. We'll have plenty more Penguins Digest videos coming up soon. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next episode of Penguins Digest.